I have the absolute wonderful pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Cate McQuillen. Unyieldingly authentic, Cate McQuillen, Emmy laureate, transforms global perspectives on sustainability. As creator and driving force of dirtgirlworld and Get Grubby TV, she channels her eco-education and performing arts background into impactful change. Advocating courage over hope, her ethos, change the story, change the world, reverberates globally. As an accomplished singer, she lends her voice as well to Giggle and Hoot's theme as well. Please welcome Cate McQuillen.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. Care of country is in your hands. Your knowledge, from the beginning until now, know-how, traditional ways of night skies and days, animal ways, the sea, the desert, the forest, the rivers and trees, the islands, terrains. Spirits remain in this land to understand connection, protection, watch for the stranger and the known. Indigenous Ranger, it's what's in your heart, so listening is where we start.
It's nice to have a bit of a connection to country, hey, when we're sitting here in a glorious city, but a city nonetheless. I'm from Bundjalung country, and as well as, of course, acknowledging our First Nations communities. I think the one thing that gobsmacks me all the time is that we are lucky to live with First Nations people who sing their geography and dance their history and paint their stories. And it's on those creative juices that I draw on every day on Bundjalung country down in the Northern Rivers. And of course, I'm very happy to be here today to share a story that was grown on Bundjalung country but has gone a long way from there across the nation and across 128 other countries around the world as well. I have a deep love of this conversation around digital child. For somebody who's so connected to nature, that might at first seem a little bit of a contradiction. But I hope what we'll see in the next little while is I learnt pretty early that when you have something this small and this powerful that you can carry outside with you, then the possibilities are basically exponential, and especially when we've got kids who this is their language that they're speaking. Now I'm going to put my little clock on because I'm notorious. I don't really prepare, I just channel. And so it's if I don't have a little timer on, we could be here tomorrow morning for breakfast. So I'll just start that. Okay, when I was 5, I got hit in the head with a football, and I think that probably explains quite a lot of what happened post that time. Here I am in the wheelbarrow that my dad would wheel me around the garden in the back of Mitcham, which is an eastern leafy sort of suburb in Melbourne. We had a half-acre block. And I was the 7th child, the 6th surviving child of my parents, and the only one born in the city. My dad was an educationalist. He'd grown up a son of a blacksmith. My mum was the daughter of a shearer. And so they were real country folk. And Dad went off to the Second World War and fought in the Second World War, came home and got a posting to Tubbut, which is, he opened a little school there that had 7 kids who had never seen the ocean. And so he worked his way, being a principal, through Gippsland, and then got taken by Curriculum and Research for the work that he was doing on 5 senses learning at that stage, and moved to the city. So we had, I grew up, that's where I was born, and then when I was in grade 5, he got posted from Curriculum and Research to an army school in Seymour to trial some of his open classroom philosophies. And so I had this kind of crazy year with a whole lot of army kids in an open school where the walls all lifted up, and it was unbelievable. We just had the most incredible year of learning. I couldn't call him Mr. McQuillen, I couldn't call him Dad, so I used to call him Hey You, and that kind of worked well for us. On reflection, when I was thinking about this the other day, there was a massive flu that went through Victoria that year, and Dad had no teachers. Like, he was him, and he had the kids who were left, and so I taught year like preps 1s and 2s for like a week. Like, he was up with the older kids, I was down with the younger kids, and like, it never would happen today, but I'm super grateful that that happened. After that year, he had long service leave, no wonder, and we went to Dargo, which is on the high plains, and it was a family farm where I got to go to school by getting into the bread van and going up to the little school where I was the only year 6 in the school. I was on contract from the teacher, and I used to finish my contract about Tuesday lunchtime, and then I could do what I liked. I could sit in the creek, I could read books, I could put on Ben Hall the musical and get all the kids to bring their horses to school. I started producing plays with my family when I was about 6. And I wanted to talk about too that, you know, we often think about all the kinds of ways kids hear story now. But when I was little, there was books, there was comics, there was films, television was on, musicals. We had a lot of poetry in our house. And also I was one of those kids who was the all singing, all dancing anomaly of our academic family. So it was quite interesting. So, you know, I feel like I was a multifaceted storyteller at a very young age, and it was my thing. It was the thing, it and nature, that was the thing that was in my cells. But then I went off and did this, sang, danced, carried on, and then fell in love. And so I had the lead role in Hair and the 20-year revival, so that kind of got the activist going in me, you know, that kind of fired me up to think about what the future was going to look like and what capitalism was all about, and decided that I'd run away to the bush with this fella who doesn't always have an orange in his mouth, but who was a bass player in an Australian rock band, and we bought a little old church on 80 acres in the northern rivers of New South Wales, 50 kilometres from anywhere, and we really thought we'd never see anyone ever again. Because coming from the middle of the city, we thought that was it. And it couldn't have been further than the truth. So that's Dirt Girl World headquarters, and I'll get to what that was in case I don't expect everybody to know what I do. So, but you know, it's a solar-powered headquarters. It's really important for us as a production company to live our values, and so while it's sometimes tedious for us to be so value-driven, it's also a great joy. For the first little while, Huey and I sang in a band in the Northern Rivers called the Two Pot Screamers, and that was a little while, meaning 17 years. And while we were doing that, that's not the local flood, even though that's how we were in the local flood. That was quite a long time ago. But while we were doing that, we met these, you know, I met these kids, right? At the minute I moved into the place, I met these kids who knew more about nature than I knew, who were so connected, who could lift up a rock, and as they're lifting up, they go, there's a slater under here. You know, lift it up and there it is, because they know their naturehood, yeah? They just know where everything is. And I was really inspired, but I was also going, what is on television for these kids? It was the time of Postman Pat and Thomas the Tank Engine, and nothing wrong with any of those things. But what was reflecting their life? What was telling their story? And what was shaping a generation? Huey and I chose not to have kids. It didn't mean we didn't want to have interaction with kids or didn't want to have some kind of shared experience that involved children in our lives. So we went, okay, let's make up Dirt Girl World. So this is the first iteration of Dirt Girl World, not very often seen. That's me, dressed up in coloured overalls. And we made this crazy music video in our backyard using a Super 8 camera. And we thought it was great. It wasn't. We've looked at it and we won't be showing anybody that. So it's just like, but it was fun. And it was the start of something. I won't go into the long story of how we got it onto air, because that's quite a lovely story. We can wait that for another time. But I will say it's about stamina, sheer determination, passion and joy, and belief and also no desperation. We kept thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? We'll just go live on the farm, you know, like, so we just didn't have this neediness. We were also in late 30s, early 40s. So we had a life of experience that we were bringing to this journey. And we wanted it to happen, and we had a strange internal belief that it would. We were different from every other producer, and so there was some fascination with that we were kind of these weird musicians who would do anything. But I also think that beyond that, the story that we had that was deeply embedded with us was seductive and it was timely. Inconvenient truth was, like all these things had happened. We were getting to a stage where people were going, we need to be talking about this with families, but we don't want to be wagging a finger, and we don't want to be do-goody, And dirtgirlworld is far from that. When we actually got the show funded just before we made it, we put this birth notice in our local paper. And we thanked, like you would thank the nurses and all the doctors for the safe delivery, we thanked everyone in the Northern Rivers who had loved us into existence, because it wasn't us. Every gig, we were still gigging. Every gig, they'd go, where's the update? And I go, well, I'm off to New York next week. And they'd all go, yay, in these pubs, there's drunk people going, go for it, when there was huge celebrations. So I always think that dirtgirlworld is a baby of the Northern Rivers, not just of Huey and me, as well as the 171 other pairs of hands and hearts that touched the show from the time it left. Well, it didn't actually leave, but the time it kind of was encompassed by us and all the other animators in Canada and Sydney and the team in London who got together to make the show. This is in the Rolling Stone magazine. Hilarious. We were never in Rolling Stone when we were musicians, but when we made dirtgirlworld, there we were. And that was a joy too, because it was at a time where green started to have no connotation about being evil. It was coming to that time where the word got claimed back a little bit to being just about caring, about eco, about sustainability, and about consciousness, and also about choices and change. These are my friends' kids, and they didn't live in the Northern Rivers where you expect them to, but they did shop when they came to our house. So I take some responsibility for their garments. But this is a photo that I sent to every single person who worked on the show. And so, because I wanted them to know, who are we making this for? And predominantly, I wanted them to make it for girls, even though when we did all the audience testing at the end of it, there was 50-50 girls and boys. And I knew that would be the case. I just knew. But I really wanted this to be a show that could help and encourage and inspire girls to get grubby, to be outside, because we know they are, but somehow in media there's a kind of a weird story that goes with tutus and tiaras, which also can get grubby and go outside, as you will see in future photos. So here is this beautiful dirtgirlworld, and they are more beautiful than we thought. Being musicians, we had been inspired by the Dissociatives music video clips, which was a clunkier looking, but like sort of put together jigsaw-y puzzle kind of thing. So we had called James Hackett from Hackett Films, and we had said to him, when I looked up on the internet the 6 things that I loved and he was producing them, I thought, well, I'll just give him a call and see what he's up to. And so he and his team came on board. And he not only just embraced what we were doing and the messages we were doing, he also embraced my desire to have a lot of female animators working on the show as well. And so all of a sudden we were able to offer jobs to graduates who were coming out. And Friday night would be, pizza night and show, and like the radio turned up and a whole heap of girls boogieing on until 11 o'clock at night, and dancing and still animating. And it was fantastic. As you can see, it's kind of weird, and I love it because it is kind of weird. So real eyes and real mouth on purpose. So the reason I really wanted to have this look and feel was that I wanted the heart of the character to come through their eyes. I really wanted, when the kids were watching it, to see it was the truth, to bring them into the soul of the characters. So all their bodies are live action, which some people don't actually understand. They think that's all animated. I keep going, how could I animate that? Because that's what a real body does. So it is absolutely, to this day, kids get it the first time they see it. Parents go, oop, and then after a little while, most of them go, oh. And some of them will never go, oh, some of them will hate it for their whole life. And that's okay. You know you've got a hit when people hate it as well as love it. And I just wanted to show you, so this is the studios that we used in Sydney. So all the bodies are shot in a big studio like this. The heads are filmed in the actors sit in like a car chair. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. The kids, I was just thinking it was me, that's all. I'm not stressed. In like a car seat for a car with they're strapped in and they can move their heads only that far before in the model when we put it inside the animation, their nose falls off their head or something horrible happens. So we had to, from a technology point of view, we had to kind of create a whole lot of stuff. And then this is just lovely drawings, just to see, you all know this, that we go from a storyboard and then we take those storyboards into studio and we film. And this is what it looked like when it was roughed up drawing, and then that's what it looked like when we got to the stage of, you know, how do we create nature? How do we create believable nature? How do we do this sort of weird, layered, sort of movable world? This is one of the weird texts that we had to do. She's Dirt Girl. This is the girl who plays Dirt Girl. She would record her head one day, and so we'd record her voice, eyes, and mouth. The next day we'd play that. We would choose overnight the chosen takes, and we would play that back in the studio, and they would vogue their bodies in time to the words that they said the day before. And those hats, bike helmets with the knobs, would track where their heads would go on, but it would also stop them bumping into each other. So, because if they bumped into each other, their heads would have got, when we put the animation on, it wouldn't have worked. So we had to make up stuff. Now, at the time, I had no idea that this was unusual. I just sort of thought, well, what do? You make up I'm not an animator. I'm a creator. I'm lucky to gather a team who are way smarter than me and love them into doing their best work. But I'm an awesome problem solver. And so being able to kind of be not part of it all, I go, well, why don't we just kind of stick pokes out and put balls on the end of it? And they're like, yeah, why don't we do that? So yes, we did. 3 female directors, and that's us, for different parts of the process. And then on country, we filmed real kids in real situations that we would go to. So we found Wool-Eye Primary School. The day I had to find the primary school, I'm out on the veranda having a cup of tea, reading the newspaper, going, I'll get to that. And I open up page 5, and here's Wool-Eye Primary School. Had won the best garden of the year and filmmakers. I was just like, they're our kids. So I rang up Wool-Eye Primary, and then we moved in. And so once again, we used local teams, so Northern Rivers Film Team, and the girl who's sitting there drawing in the book, at that stage, she came on as our first AD. That's Dirt Girl, but the kids didn't know her because they hadn't seen her. So Marie was as much part of production as she was like behind the camera as well as being on camera. And there we are in the school. So what would happen is we would film, we also set them up because the school didn't want any money, the parents didn't want any money, so we bought them a whole rig so that they could do filming in the school and an edit suite, and we got training for all the kids, and they ended up making multiple films out of the school. So we were really happy with that. So because the kids were filmmakers, this wasn't foreign for them, the process either. Like they just slotted straight in. That's what a green screen looks like. That's what people who should know how to take a photo better, but there we all are. And then we move through to things like how do you express what you're doing on the screen to people who come afterwards, to people who are going to merchandise and do things for you. How do we keep Story World going? You know, how do we say this is the colour palette of the show? So we made a digital scrapbook that had all kinds of things like this. But I just wanted to show you that we didn't kind of abandon everything and then go into a traditional style guide because we knew that it was going to be tricky for anyone who came on board post-production because they hadn't done this before. So we're on air, everything's going swimmingly, and you'll get an idea in a minute because we'll go pretty fast over this stuff. I cannot help myself. I have to tell story everywhere I possibly can. And Huey and I are completely prolific, ridiculous ideas people. And it's exhausting, but it's worth it. Right, so this is an app that I wanted to have there was, and this is well before QR codes became popular during the pandemic, that lettuce, little lettuce, is a lettuce that you put in the garden. There's a little marker that says lettuce, and you get that with the lettuce seeds. And then you point your phone at that, and up comes a 12-week course on how to plant lettuces. So every week you point your phone at the marker, the child will point their phone, and Dirt Girl will pop up and go, "Hi, it's week 2. Right, can you see the little, has it popped up yet? Has it germinated?" Right, so she'll basically talk them through from how far apart to plant the seeds, to looking for what happens, to thinning plants, treating them like gardeners, not like children, training them to be gardeners. And the idea was we did 3 seeds because once they knew how to grow these 3, they should be able to do it by themselves. I didn't want them to be tied to something all the time. But every time they did something, they were rewarded with content, and then they could put their photos and share their photos with the community of Dirt Girl growers. And what else happened? Oh, and then recipes of how to use it, how to cook it. And so when we talk about our Emmy, we won the Emmy for our content for the show, but we won a digital Emmy for this, kind of taking it from the television broadcast screen to multiple places, with this being the main thing. So yeah, so the sunflower seeds. I just hated the idea of having purposeless merchandise. Probably my one controversial thing I'll say is I don't have any respect for people who create content for children and then just create landfill. I just don't think that's looking after kids' futures. And so for us, we didn't want anything. I didn't want to have an albatross picture of a bird that had been opened up in the ocean and inside was a Dirt Girl toy. Like, that would have just broken our hearts. Probably why we still live in the same house, but I'm happy to stand on my values. It's all right. I love my house. So we wanted purposeful things that led to action, activity. And all this while, what was happening is a real philosophy was growing in me that started with my dad, and kind of, it was about connect, understand, act. Having this, if we want impact, if we want change, if we want kids to feel inspired to change, having that in that order. Of course, I've done lots of reading since, but connecting to nature, then so having heart in first, then moving to head, so the information, the fact, and then having your heart aligned with your information, it's natural for your hands to make the right course of action. And so having this kind of triangle, really strong triangle in everything we did, became our mantra or our manifesto. And so that's what we stuck to. And it was simple, so it let these crazy ideas that kept coming have a framework. Oh, because I forgot to say, in the middle of all that stuff down where I was singing and dancing, my mum and dad bribed me to go to university to do education. And I'm very pleased that they did that, because it's just, like, you don't know, do you? You don't know what skills you're gathering for what moment, you know? And I love that. I love that. Every single step of the journey led me to Dirt Girl World. And who knows where that's going to go, right? But right at the moment it's here. Huey, who is an amazing musician, had a job as a horticulturalist, just so he could pay his bills while he was playing music. But his love of nature and of growing things happened then, when he was 18, 19, 20. And that, you know what I mean? Like, so there's these, we just never know. So I'm very grateful for mum and dad bribing me to go to uni. Stunt Time was our second app. I wanted an app that the app got powered, the game got powered by kids moving. So the camera, they had to do exercise, they had to do running on the spot, had to do star jumps, they had to do all this stuff. And the camera would photograph the kids doing it and would, you know, build up the energy for the game. And then halfway through the game, they run out of energy. They have to go back to the energy bot and power it up again. And of course, because Ken and Grubby are in Dirt Girl World, they've got a stunt arena. And so the kids are obsessed with this. I didn't really know. I hoped they would be obsessed with it, but they're obsessed with these stunts, right? They send me letters. Every day I get letters. We think you might have run out of ideas for stunts. Have you thought about, you know, so I get lots of feedback from these kids. So these are little games. The Dirt Girl World Club, I wanted kids to have a voice. And so I got these guys to make me avatars that when the kids recorded their voices, those little lines moved, so they looked like they were speaking. And the idea of Club Dirt Girl World was Dirt Girl would ask a question, and the kids would have created their avatar, put their voice to it, and then they'd stand in the forest, and the kids could all click on them and hear what other kids thought about these things. And so it was safe, because I'm talking about little kids, yeah? It's easy to tell when an adult is pretending to be a little kid, so I could not have them in the forest at all. And Dirka would ask things like, how are your lettuces going? What ideas have you got about blah, blah, blah? What if we didn't have landfills? Right, like, so she could ask any question and the kids would come up and so then they could see what their peers were thinking about it. And that's the little avatar maker. And, you know, fair obsession with everything looking beautiful. Then we went live on stage, and we've got this crazy social media world going, and we've got councils coming to us asking us, could you help us get our communities to recycle more or to compost better? And so my fear that we were going to miss out, no, it wasn't really a fear, miss out by not having merchandise was completely aligned. Like, I was alleviated from that because education is our model. And so, it's so much more fulfilling anyway for us as a team, for the cast, for everybody. And so, and this is when social media was at its absolute popping peak, right? Facebook was so popping. And so we were able to have stuff on YouTube and we had things happening. Instagram was new days, but Facebook, post reach, 50.5 million, right? And this was before the algorithm got turned off, right? Before there were too many ads. But in that time, we built a global community that to this day still follow us. So we were just really lucky to come in at a time when discussing and talking and everything was not just new, but for the parents, this was just a place that they knew and called the happiest place on Facebook. So yeah, lots of stuff happening on socials, lots of challenges, lots of real things. Because once again, I kept saying, how do I subvert this world of social media to do what I would like it to do what families need, to do what kids need? In my humble opinion, how do I control the world? No, and so it really was stuff like working with Planet Ark and doing challenges around going outside, growing up in nature, and so we would work and partner with not-for-profits predominantly, and help lift them and help support them in their messaging, and also kind of build this collaborative notion that all of these people who are having this discussion, that we're all in this together, that we're not competing against each other, that we're shoulder to shoulder. Mud pies are huge in Dirka World. It's just so, it's getting grubby, making mud pies, showing them, getting outside, sponsoring, having mud pie-a-thons where grandparents sponsor how many mud pies their kids make. And I don't think they realise how many mud pies a kid can make because, you know, I always say, don't do $1 a pie, don't do it. But then we would take what was happening in the adult world, you know, when everyone was lying on the ground and drawing chalk pictures around themselves, you know. So as soon as something started to go off, we'd nab it and we would bring it into our family world. And so they could have a safe, fun time doing these cool things. So we got to we're in this kind of digital world and that was weird. This is like one of the weirdest days in Huey's and my life. We got nominated for an Emmy. We go across to France and Gene Simmons is the guy who's giving out the kids' Emmy, right? Which to us is like heaven, because my first concert I ever went to was Kiss, right? And here we are, heavy rockers really, you know, with Gene Simmons. Anyway, it was just too good to be true. And he was glorious and lovely, and that's nice to know too, that he's a lovely man. And then you sort of go from those sort of arts awards that we would didn't expect, because we thought the Germans were going to win, so we huddled up next to them so we might get half our head on camera, you know. And then so all you got on camera was me and Huey going, no idea. But this is interesting for me because this is an EPA award from for resource management. So this is the conversations that we have with full community, and having that, taking that lunge from just talking to families or speaking with children to speaking to whole community was lovely. It was a glorious thing to be able to do, and to actually say that you can take the simplicity and joy of messaging is actually what everybody needs. Like it's not about dumbing down, because there's definitely no dumbing down, but it's like that joy, people find joy and a great reason to change, rather than being told, don't do this or don't, do this. And it was lovely to win an EPA award for that. Oh, sorry, there's just us with awards. That's a bit boring. We've won lots of awards. And then I went, hey, why don't we do a live action version of the show? Why don't we grow Dirt Girl World for real in our paddock? And then I could just direct in my pajamas, and I would never have to go anywhere. So this was a plot to never leave home before the pandemic once again. We didn't know we'd have to stay home. So that's what we did. We grew Dirt Girl World, and this was iteration number 1. And I do love the ABC for allowing me to be creatively experimental on the public of Australia. And this was a mistake, right? This was a creative mistake, this first iteration. It changed, but everyone let me do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one kind of punished me for doing it. I thought Cirque du Soleil heads would be really awesome, that we'd have these crazy wigs that weren't quite as crazy as I thought. But what our glorious moment in Get Grubby TV is I stalked Costa Georgiadis from Gardening Australia, and it didn't take long to stalk. I text him, hey Costa, Kate here who makes Dirt Girl World, would you like to be in the live action version? Costa says, yes, I've been waiting for you to get in contact with me. I can't wait to do it. Anyway, so he comes and sits on our veranda. We have this big ABC meeting. Costa's there, Huey and I are there. This is ridiculous. We're in the middle of nowhere, right? On our veranda, sitting there. And I knew what I wanted Costa to be, but you can't kind of tell people everything when you're doing kind of collaboration. So we're sitting there and we go round the circle once. So what character could Costa be, And we've all got, everyone else is teed up, right? And go round and Costa goes, I could be the wind. I could be Costa the wind, and I could blow through Dirt Girl World. I'm like, yeah. And we all go through, he could be a blah, 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 blah. Gets back to Costa's second round, he goes, I could be a garden gnome, right? And I went, who else thought Costa could be a garden gnome? And everyone went, great, okay, Costa's the garden gnome. Of course he is the garden gnome. Like, what else would he be? Seriously, it's like. But Costa joining the team was a breath of fresh air for lots of reasons, but not for kids. Kids love Costa, absolutely, but kids love Dirt Girl and Scrap Boy. Parents love Costa. And so community loves Costa. And so what it allowed us to do is to actually come into this bigger world of talking to community. So this is Dirt Girl's veranda at our house. There's Dirt Girl and Costa at our place. This is us filming. So it's a bit like a Woodford Festival. We all come together, camp in tents. There's friends of ours who have hatted chefs come and cook at our house. We eat like kings. We sing 3 songs around the fire and then we're all tired and we go to bed. And so, but it's so lovely as an expression to be able to be in my naturehood, working collaboratively. We work so tightly together because we're fast and furious when it comes to filming. So this is the one I'm proud of, the no crazy wigs, lovely real hair. Get Grubby TV. It's a bit funny. There's Dirt Girl's bedroom and Scrap Boy's workshop. That's in our where we park our cars. Like, we park our car where Dirt Girl's bed is, and we park our car where that table is, like it's 2 car spaces. And we just took the cars out and built 2 sets in. And so, it's like handmade TV, and so it was back to our roots of everything's recycled, everything's second-hand, everything's handmade. And so when the kids are looking, what they're seeing is the world that Dirt Girl values all the time. Then we did, the Sydney Opera House commissioned a musical from us. And so I wrote Get Grubby the musical, and we directed that and we went down. And it was well, you know, a sellout season at the Opera House, what do you say? It was unbelievable. We had the best time. But the moment for me was Michael and Marie, who played Dirkle and Scrap Boy, I taught at the Grafton Conservatorium when they were teenagers. Then I cast them in the show. And when we walked in, and I'm getting teary even thinking about it, when we walked into the Sydney Opera House, into the stage door, they were just walking in front of me and I was just walking behind. And how emotional that was, that these two kids, that it wasn't so much about me at that moment, it was these two young people. And here we were at the Sydney Opera House. And I love them so much. I love them like they're my own kids when they're, in fact, grown-ups now. Anyway, there we all are, looking like dirtgirlworld at the Opera House. The rubbish collection started this obsession with community consultation and community working with education around waste and changing people's attitudes. If you need to know what you need to put in the bin out there, come and speak to me. I'll let you know. And so we have billboards really driving around towns that have got the messaging on them. So yes, all kinds of stuff around waste. Vending machines that give out compost bins. And an early, this is called the Environmental Learning Facility, or the ELF, which is an installation, quite big, probably double the size of this room, where kids come and learn about where things go, and that's sort of the banners, growing gardens, talking about change with kids. Then we moved into, this is just us filming at home. The editor, we've got this awesome editor. This is him sitting in our lounge room. So he edits like mad all day. And then we all stand around at night watching a music video or something, right? Like, so we've got this feedback loop happening all the time. It's all great. We spend a lot of time talking to politicians. We spend a lot of time trying to create the child's voice in decision making. So we take kids with us as well. And this is something I'm extraordinarily proud of. It's called the Get Grubby program. I created it. It's a curriculum, sustainability curriculum for early childhood and early primary years. It's online delivered. And we've got it in about 3,000 centres around Australia at the moment, with lots more opportunity for the program. But it's the hands, it's that heart, head, hands in curriculum matched. It's glorious and bespoke videos, and has this, and once again has a whole lot of teachers talking together about this, then a whole lot of kids talking about it, a whole lot of families. Dirt Girls Nature Detective Academy, a podcast. So you can start to see, it's everywhere that we can be, we try and be. Dirt Girl has a live band called Mother Earth, who just happen to be all my girlfriends who used to play in a band called Mother. And but we did headline at Splendour, we did headline at Blues Fest. It's really ridiculous what we get up to. So lots of gigs, lots of music. We host the green carpet at the Arias, where musicians talk to us about what they've got on that's sustainable, or so it just brings another world to them. Dirt Girl's Aria dress has got made out of op shop sex stuffed toys. They're all stuffed toys sewn onto a dress. Gnome parties. We finally succumb to the dolls story, but it's a kit. So you buy the kit and you stuff it with old socks or old bits of material, and it's on organic Australian cotton, and it's printed that way where it looks retro because it uses 40% less ink, and we use veggie inks on it. I would love it. My great goal is to put a chip inside her so you can take her out to the garden and she can help you with your gardening. That'd be really fun. But at the moment, at the end of life, you can bury her. I know that sounds weird. Oh, look, someone with a baby. Talking at conferences, hanging out with Jack Jones, doing beach cleanups, and hanging out with Mob. And we work, I have to say, look who's number 11. Chris Hemsworth, right? Number 14, Dirt Girl. Get it? Just thought I'd let you know that. Interestingly enough, that was what the paper voted for, but when they did the popular vote, we got number 1. Suck on that, Chris. Go Wild for Maths we made during the pandemic. ABC gave us some funding to work on a COVID-safe project where we did maths in nature. Mud pie fests at home during COVID. During COVID, Dirt Girl moved into home with us and we streamed every day for families so that they could still have nature time. The Alpha Streamer is after pandemic, the government did a Rise Fest funding for artists to get back on their feet. So we turned our teardrop camper into a broadcast facility, and we go and live stream at kids' events and kids' festivals at schools and let kids be the filmmakers out of the back of the truck. Lismore Lantern Festival, monster lanterns. The heads are like maybe in the middle of their chest is where the person is, so you can see how big and glorious these are. We spend a lot of time at Woodford. Same thing, partnerships, getting kids to make food out of fruit, getting kids to make costumes out of fruit. Chickens are big. And just I want to finish off with the story. We spend a lot of time on country with community, working on growing food, and it's the best thing. It's the best thing we do, and it's the best time that we have. So these are the 13 communities south of Alice Springs that we're working with at the moment, and Costa and Scrapboy up at Hermansburg this week coming up. But yeah, this is like nothing I ever imagined that we would be involved in, and changed our lives. Changed our lives in such a way that I'm now obsessed with 8 Ways Learning and bringing that into leading the curriculums that we're doing for the senior primary schools. We did a documentary with the Indigenous Rangers across the top of Australia that took us a year to make, and it was once again just incredible. I used to think to myself, how are the Rangers going to deal with us? You know, like here we are in our costumes, here they all are grown-ups. And one of the elders said, and no one blinked. No one blinked about the characters. Everyone just rolled in and off we went. And one of the elders said, compared to our dreaming, you guys are nothing. And I was like, oh, yeah. Declare Your Care is a project to watch out for this year. I'm working with families to create a manifesto of their sustainability values using a card game, like a physical card game. And that's our new bin work with Costa now as an animated character as well. I suppose what I wanted to leave you with is that working with resilience, helping kids through a time when if you're 8-year-old in Australia and your memories are drought, bushfire, pandemic and flood, then helping rewiring joy into those children's lives is so important. And that's not going to go away, sadly, that cascading catastrophes are not going to go away. And so finding ways that we can connect with kids to help them be more resilient during this time in a digital way is an incredible challenge, but there is so much that we could all be doing. Like a Get Grubby Garden tour, which would be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, there you go. I know it's fast and furious, but what I suppose I wanted to really say is that you can live in the middle of nowhere and have a dream. And if you are determined and dogged and passionate and courageous and happy, people will gather around you. People will say yes to you, and you can do something that you never imagined and make change inspire change to happen in community. And that when we talk about our digital child, we don't denature them. And I think that's really obvious. And I suppose that's why I was really so glad to be asked today to come and have a yarn with you about that, because I feel like that connection with the digital child and nature is really strong and they love it. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Cate. We have come to time, so we won't be able to take questions now, but... Oh, yeah? Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Well, I just wanted to firstly say thank you so much for that talk. It's so refreshing and inspiring to see the ways in which we can live and produce and educate and learn with our values front and center. And it's so refreshing to see. And I'm really grateful for you spending your time today sharing that with us. And I'd just like to open up the floor to, is there any questions? I know I have several, but Well, I'll start off, I guess, following on by asking. So, you mentioned, I think, well, you were hinting to kind of saying it was a controversial take in terms of having a stance when it comes to the merchandising side of it. And I'm really curious to hear more around the challenges or the ways that you navigate funding the actual productions in a way to avoid participating in extractive processes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the reasons why Huey and I learned to be producers was because we realised that the producer controls that conversation, not the creative. And so that was weird because it was a learning curve of, but, still, it's just a job. So I think for me, the hardest part was that one of our partners in financing the show, because Dirt Girl, the animation series, cost $10.6 million to make. And so you can imagine you've got a lot of different partners that come on board, and BBC Worldwide came on board. And when we were talking to the original person who was there, they wanted us to be the David Attenborough's Earth. They wanted us to be the kids' version of that. And so we went into that with that person and their attitude. So 2 years down the track, that's how long it took to animate it, and there's 6 people who've had that job, and you get somebody who has no commitment or no belief sitting opposite you. Luckily, we were cheeky enough in our contracting to put a clause in there that everybody agreed to, which was for the good of the planet. Now, we could never have if they challenged us in court, it was more of we actually put it in and they actually signed it. And so it enabled us to actually extract ourselves from the BBC agreement for $1. And so we could buy their investment back for $1 because they had no understanding whatsoever. So the first thing they said is, okay, so we'll do pyjamas as our first thing. I'm like, what? Like, oh yeah, we'll do pyjamas. I'm like, why would we do pyjamas? What's it got to do with the story? Oh, we always do pyjamas first. And then they were pyjamas that were treated with chemicals. They were it was a nightmare. So I went back and we did this kind of whole thing of what kind of beautiful pyjamas we could have. Well, and to me, it's the Starry Safari. It's a night safari suit, right? And it's got pockets in it, and it had a little head torch, and imagine what kid wouldn't want a safari suit pyjamas, yeah? So we get back there and we do this massive presentation. Oh no, we just do these pyjamas. Oh, well, we won't be doing pyjamas. No, I'm sorry, I can't give my approval on pyjamas. And so it was just this never-ending back. And I didn't want to feel like the most obstructional person. If they had have come with one nice notion, we would have just been going, yay, let's do that. But there was just never a nice notion put in front of us. And so we just had to say no. And so how do we get around it? By actually just refusing to be part of it. Now, if we weren't the producers, there's no way. I would be crying today because there would be so much stuff and junk out there. There'd be a Dirt Girl toaster, like what she doesn't make toast, she makes pancakes. So I just sort of feel like we just took control and probably, I wish that wasn't the case, and I don't think it would be the case now. This was 12, 15 years ago. There's so many more opportunities to be sustainable now. And I think that whoever we partnered with would have kind of got that there's beauty, there's a real marketplace for that. Just as a short answer, what I would love to do is I want to do a website called Dirt Girl Loves, and all it is people who are making beautiful things that Dirt Girl loves, and that it's a marketplace like Etsy, but it's just things that are made sustainably for families that I don't make. Because I couldn't even get over, why would I go and make vegan Play-Doh to take the market away from the 2 or 3 vegan Play-Doh? But why am I not just endorsing? Why aren't we partnering? Why aren't we doing that sort of thing? So in the long run, I think that's where we'll end up. I keep thinking that I might have missed the boat with that, but I don't think that, I don't think I have. So, yeah. But it's challenging because the people that you're working with are sometimes money driven. Yeah, always money driven.
Thanks, Cate. Do we have one more? Yeah, is there a question from the audience?
There's a couple there. And also you can chew my ear at lunchtime or whenever, come and have a talk.
Thank you. It's not really a question, Cate, it's just a little fangirl moment. I'm an early childhood educator, and I've utilised some of your videos in my classroom with my learning with my children. And they are mesmerised and they thoroughly enjoy your messages that you're getting across, and it makes my planning for curriculum a lot easier. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thanks heaps. It's really great to know because I sit in isolation there, you know, ticking along, and it's just great to get that feedback. Thanks heaps.
Wonderful. And on that note, please join me in thanking Cate McQuillen once again.